Hi folks, it's William with Quarantine Studio, here once again in the studio. Today's video I am going to talk to you a little bit about this guy here. This particular statue belongs to a client, and they commissioned me personally to make some alterations to it. So they purchased the statue from our site and then contacted me about maybe making some alterations. And so, sure, I'm always willing to take on a challenge like that. I think there's a common misconception with these pre-painted statues that, you know, that's it. You take it out of the box and you're done with it. That's really not the case. If you want to, if you got the skills, you can certainly alter these. Yes, it's a little bit different because the material that you're working with is a little different. In this case, the material is a resin, but it does have porcelain dust mixed in it. So it's a little bit harder and much heavier material than we modelers are accustomed to working with our garage kits. So Quarantine Studios was founded in the garage kit industry, and we did that for a number of years under different banners, and then we launched in 2008 Quarantine Studio, and we wanted to bring to market these really nice, affordable pre-painted statues, and so that's what we've strived to do, and we continue to strive to do so. But in that, we have been transitioning from a garage kit company into a pre-paint company, and so we still deal with a lot of modelers, and you know, we're still trying to sell into that group, and I think a lot of those folks just kind of write us off. It's like, oh, you guys are pre-paint now, so I don't have much to do with you. Well, actually, you do. We sell everything as a kit, and you know, yes, it's a little bit different material, but it's very, very close to the same, and we don't carry that many of them. So what I wanted to do was just shoot a little video and just showing you some of the other things that can be done to actually modify pre-painted statues. So if you're a modeler, or if you're just a collector and you would like to have, you know, something modified on one of your kits, if you can't do it, there are people out there that can. I am one of those folks. So let's just stop yapping and let's take a look at what has happened so far on this particular statue. Okay, folks, so what we're looking at here is the base currently. I've got a couple extra little bits here, and I'm going to talk about these in just a moment. I want to get them off of here right now. Kind of move them aside. So let's start at the base. I'm going to just take him off the base. Off there, big guy. And what I did with this is, obviously they're going with a different character here. So for this, I wanted to put, obviously, a different logo on the base. And so what I did was I did a Google search for the logo, found one that I liked, that my customer would be happy with, and printed that off. I scaled it to fit my needs, and then printed one out. Now, I took the top of this base and I painted the entire thing white. Next, I covered the top of it with blue tape. Now, I particularly like this particular brand. This is the 3M brand. It's blue nonstick tape. It's great. But I covered the top of that with the tape, and then I laid my printout right on top of that, and then I used a scalpel. Now, I prefer using scalpels over standard X-Acto blades because they're much sharper and I get much cleaner cuts with them. So I prefer that, but use whatever you want. So once I cut that out, I cut all the way through the paper and through the tape itself, and then I just peeled off what didn't need to be there. Finally, I just painted the whole thing black, and this paint is coming straight out of an aerosol can. That's it, because it's fast and easy, and there you go. And so there's the result. So there is the base. Now I'm going to set that aside here. The other thing that I've done to this is the actual statue itself. So I removed some information here, and then on his head is actually changed. I'm going to try to get this in camera, and hopefully you can kind of see that. So this particular character had a distinct hairline here, which I have basically removed, and I've added some 2-part epoxy putty to fill that in and give this guy a more natural or normal looking haircut. So that is all that's going to happen to this particular guy. We're going to go back in and repaint him from the waist up. From the waist down, he's fine, so I don't think I'm going to touch that. I'm going to mask all that off, but from the waist up, he is going to get repainted. And so the last thing that I wanted to do was go ahead and add some more to this base. We do these simple maquette bases. They work great, nothing wrong with that. But one of the things that you could do, even without a whole lot of artistic ability, if you will, is to dress up the base a little bit, add some artifacts to the base to help sell the idea, to make it a scene. What I have is basically an empty clip here, and it's the same scale. It is yet to be painted yet, but anyway, there it is. So that's just going to sit there on the base somewhere. And then the thing that you can't find, or at least it's very difficult to find, is the spent rounds, the spent ammunition. And so I have a few pieces here. I'm going to put my hand behind it maybe, so maybe you can see that. I'm not sure. Let's see here. So little tiny pieces here, whoops, and they're so tiny they're really easy to drop. But basically that is a little spent shell casing here. So this is something that I manufactured myself. I just made this, and I've made actually a few of them here. And if I don't lose them all before I get this to my client, it'll be an amazing thing. So I need to make some more ammunition. So how do we go about doing something like that? And that's really going to be the focus of this particular video, is how do we make that little empty shell casing here. So you need a couple of things. One, I'm going to use a piece of just rod styrene here. If you wanted to get a little more particular about it, depending on the shell casing, you could actually take and notch this down a little bit, or even stretch some sprue, and then where it kind of begins to stretch, it goes from thick to thin, you just kind of cut in that area and get that little neck down appearance that you get whenever you see one of those shell casings. So let me get my spectacles on here. What I want to do is I'm just going to cut off a piece of the styrene. Now once again, I am going to use my scalpel for this, because it is a much sharper blade than say a standard X-Acto. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure this off, how far it needs to be. And in my case, that's about a 1/4 of an inch. So I've marked that. Find my mark here. And then what I want to do is I'm going to put my finger on the other side here, this small piece, and I'm just rocking this back and forth. And I don't know if you can see that on the video or not, but I'll see if I can zoom in post here. But I'm just rocking that back and forth, applying a little pressure. And the rocking motion actually, it rolls the styrene in this case, because it is round, obviously. And so it just cuts through nice and easy. Now I put my finger over it because this little tiny bit will go flying away into the nether. And I don't want that. So there's one. And I can just use that as a measuring for the next piece. There we are. Whoops. And so once again, just kind of rocking it, trying to make sure I get a full rotation of the styrene piece, keeping my finger over the end of it so that it doesn't, like I said, fly into the ether there. Okay, there we go. So cutting down your styrene, simple enough. You could also use, I've seen some folks use brass tube. You can buy really fine brass tubing. It's almost like a needle. It's so fine. You can get that and cut it as well. It will also cut with the same process, just scoring it with something like this. That would work just fine. But once you get that, then you really, that's not enough. That's just just a stick, really. These shells obviously have a little flared end to them. What I have here, let me just break out the box. Amongst all the junk that I have here on my desk, I have a Waldron Model Products Precision Punch and Die set. Bought this thing several years ago. It works great. Like I I can see I'm getting a little bit of rust in there. I need to clean those up. That's the one bad thing about living in the South. You always got all the humidity to contend with. But that's the only bad thing about living in the South, I should say. This one's just different gauges. It doesn't really give you a number. It does on the box. It'll tell you exactly what size that is. But here, to keep it simple, it's just 1 through 6. So what I'm using is a number 2. The number 2 is slightly larger than the tube itself, only slightly larger. And that's exactly what I want. So it has a mating pin here, and that'll slide right through there. And it fits, it's machined to fit perfectly, and that's the whole idea behind the punch and die. So what I do is this little acrylic piece will actually open up. It's very, very tight fitting. So if you get it twisted in the slightest little bit, it will not come off. And then I just have a little piece of scrap styrene here. Now the scrap styrene is very thin. This is probably, I don't know, this is probably 06 or 08, maybe, something like that. Well, 006 or 008. No 007 here, not today. But anyway, I'm just going to set that in there. I'm going to put the little acrylic piece back on it. And basically wherever that hole for the number 2 is, that's where I want to put the scrap piece. So that's what I have here. And I'm just kind of running around. This is just a little scrap piece that I had. But I put this in place, get the little thing in place, and I have this little jumbo hammer here, and just one quick strike. That's all it takes. You want to do it in one strike, so you want to strike it hard enough that it will puncture all the way through, and a good quick strike too, because it makes for a nice clean cut. And I'm simply just moving the plastic each time and putting the pin back in place, and a quick blow. There we go. So now, what I'm going to have, and I'm going to see if I can scrape some of these off here. The plastic, the styrene, has a little bit of static electricity built up in it, and so they tend to stick to everything except what you want them to. So I'm just going to put a few of these in my hand here so you can see what we've got. So what I end up with are the little end pieces here. Perfect little circles. It's beautiful. You can use it for rivets, all kinds of other things. If you don't have one of these punch and die sets, I highly recommend it. It's awesome. And then, of course, the styrene. So just drop all these little things back down here. Now, to make the two together, well, that's also pretty simple. When I get down my 10X, or this is the Ambroid Pro Weld. Basically, this is not a glue, it's a solvent. And it's a solvent specifically for styrene. Got just an old brush here, and I'm going to take one of my little bits of styrene, and I'm going to just touch the end of it, because you don't need much, just need a little bit. And then I'm going to touch one of those little discs that we cut out, and just the capillary action. Oops, I'll hold this in camera here. Just the capillary action there, and see if it works better if my hand's behind it. You can see it, and that holds a little cap on. So what I like to do with these is then stand them upright, which is always a challenge. There we go. But that's it. I mean, I'm going to do another one here real quick. Right there is my little disc. I'm going to take, once again, just a little bit of the Pro Weld here, touch the tip to the styrene rod, and just going to touch that, like so. And that little, I don't know if you saw that, I don't know if the video caught that or not, but that little disc just jumped up to the styrene. I'm just turning it around, just making sure that it is even. It looks pretty even. So now, like I said, I like to try and stand it up on its end, like so. And just to let that dry. It doesn't take very long for this to dry. Now, if you wanted to, you could get a little nuts with this. And what I can do, if I'm really wanting to get into the detail, I don't think it's going to matter on this one. This is one of the little shells that has dried. If I go right here on the tip of it, see if you can see that. And I'm just going to drill out the end of it a little bit. And so there you have it, creating, in this case, some shell casings to go on this base. Just one way that you can accessorize or upgrade your pre-painted statues. So that's just one thing that we can do. As you saw, I did the hair here, working on things like that, a little bit heavier, a little more work involved with that. And then, of course, he's going to get a whole paint up. So stick around. We'll have more videos on how I paint this guy up. If you have questions, want to know how to do this sort of thing, or if you want to maybe commission us or see what it would take for us to customize your statue, and it doesn't have to be a Quarantine Studio statue. It doesn't matter. I'll work with any of the statue manufacturers out there. It doesn't matter. If you own it, I'll be happy to give you a quote. So just give me an email. My email address is Will E. That's W-I-L-L, the letter E, at QuarantineStudio.com. Well, that's it for this particular video. Like I said, stick around. We'll have more videos on this project and, of course, other projects. I still have that Conan project that I'm working on where I'm going to add some leggings and stuff to him because I've put him on a snow base rather than the rock base. So that's another heavy customization project that I'm working on. So be sure and keep an eye out for that. We'll have some updates on that coming soon. Well, that's it for this time. I'm William Everhart with Quarantine Studio here in the studio. We'll see you next time.